Jax's revenge domain. Someone get the truck driver a coffee while the adults finish talking. That's what he said. Loud enough for the room. Loud enough for the lapel mic. Loud enough for the 3 cameras running live feed to investors, to the board archive, to everyone watching the leadership transition of Harwick Industrial Holdings from their offices that morning. I had my hand out, ready to greet the incoming CEO. Brent Holloway, chairman of the board, looked at my hand, looked at the flowers I was holding, looked at my shoes, work boots, not dress shoes, and made his decision in about 2 seconds flat. He never looked at my face first. My name is Aaron Callahan. I'm 54 years old. I'm the founding partner of Ridgepoint Capital, a private holding firm based in Columbus, Ohio. And what I'm about to tell you is how 1 sentence, 11 words spoken into a hot mic in a Cincinnati boardroom ended up costing Brent Holloway his job, his reputation, and $2.1 billion in committed capital before lunch. But to understand why that number matters, you need to understand how I got into that room in the first place. Harwick Industrial Holdings had been on our radar for about 8 months. They were a mid-sized conglomerate, contract manufacturing, logistics, a warehouse network across 5 states, solid footprint, decent client base. The kind of company that should have been printing money. Instead, they were bleeding. Their outgoing CEO had spent 4 years treating the balance sheet like a shopping list. Acquisition after acquisition, each one announced with a press release and a handshake's photo, none of them integrated properly. He'd stacked debt on top of debt, cut operational headcount instead of executive overhead, and smoothed over every quarterly miss with phrases like transitional headwinds and strategic repositioning. The banks had started calling. Vendors were tightening terms. The market had stopped believing the story. By the time Harwick came to us, they needed 2 things: a serious capital injection and a leadership reset. Ridgepoint was prepared to provide the capital. They were promising to deliver the reset. The deal we structured was $2.1 billion in total committed capital, a syndicated arrangement with Ridgepoint as lead tranche, meaning our commitment was the load-bearing piece. Without it, the other institutional partners couldn't proceed as structured. Most wouldn't proceed at all. Harwick would appoint a new CEO with a mandate to stabilize operations and clean house. The board would adopt governance reforms to prevent another acquisition spree. Clean and straightforward on paper. My co-partner Reed had pushed to send one of our VPs to the closing session. Said it was routine, ceremonial even. Just show up. Shake hands, let the lawyers finish. I told him I'd go myself. There's a reason for that. 2 years before Harwick, I committed to a deal without being in the room. A $600 million injection into a regional infrastructure firm. I trusted the chairman's track record. I delegated to my second-in-command. 3 days before closing, a video went public. The chairman standing in front of a company town hall, pointing at a line worker, calling him replaceable trash. Laughing about it, the crowd laughed too. We still closed. We shouldn't have. The next 18 months were regulatory headaches, union grievances, and my firm's name attached to a company that treated its workers like equipment that needed replacing. We got our return eventually, but the cost in time and reputation wasn't worth the number on paper. I promised myself it wouldn't happen again. So into every deal after that, I put a clause. We didn't call it legal language. We called it the respect clause. Simple terms. If during negotiations or closing, any senior leadership at the target company engaged in documented conduct that materially harmed the company's reputational standing, Ridgepoint could withdraw its commitment immediately. No penalty, no delay, no renegotiation window, capital off the table. Harwick's board had reviewed it. Their outside counsel had reviewed it. Holloway himself had signed off on the term sheet that included it. He just didn't think it was about him. People like Holloway never do. The morning of the meeting, I flew into Cincinnati, changed at the airport lounge, and took a car to Harwick's headquarters. Glass tower downtown, the kind of building with a stock ticker in the lobby and a promo reel of smiling warehouse workers on the wall that nobody who works in the warehouse ever actually sees. The receptionist, Faye, her nameplate said, gave me the standard smile. Welcome to Harwick name, Aaron Callahan, here for the board session. Her fingers stopped on the keyboard, half a second pause, the kind people don't notice unless they've learned to look for it. I've learned to look for it. A few minutes later, Cole Rafferty from Investor Relations came down to escort me up. Young guy, good suit, rehearsed small talk, asked about my flight. I asked about the mood upstairs. Eager, he said, and a little anxious. The elevator opened to softer carpet, quieter halls. We passed framed photos of past CEOs cutting ribbons at facilities they no longer owned. Stopped outside double glass doors. 2 cameras mounted above them, red lights off. For the webcast, Cole said, "Leadership wanted transparency today." I thought of the clause. "Good," I said. Inside, the boardroom looked like someone had ordered successful corporate from a catalog. Long polished table, high-backed leather chairs, one full wall of glass overlooking downtown Cincinnati. The opposite wall lined with presentation screens already primed and waiting. And on a credenza in the corner, a flower arrangement. White lilies, eucalyptus. The invoice for those had come through Ridgepoint. Harwick had asked us to sponsor refreshments and decor for the event. The order had been placed under my name. Cole picked them up and handed them to me when I pointed it out. "Optics," he said quietly. "They wanted the room to feel warm." I took the flowers and held them. Warm wasn't the word I'd use for what came next. Brent Holloway was already at the head of the table, early 60s. Silver hair, good suit, the kind of tan you get from a lot of time on a golf course and not much time in a factory. He noticed the flower arrangement before he noticed me. Told me to set it on the sideboard. I said I'd hold it. He gave me the look you give someone who doesn't understand where they stand and turned back to his conversation. Nobody introduced me. No nameplate at the table. "No, this is the managing partner from Ridgepoint Capital." They saw the flowers, the work boots, no familiar face from their usual bank rotation, and they made their decision fast. Support staff, background. I walked around the table toward Owen Carver, the incoming CEO. Late 30s, good haircut, eyes that looked tired in the way of someone who'd spent 2 weeks in back-to-back prep sessions. He looked up as I came around. I set the flowers at the table's edge, freed my right hand, and extended it toward him. "Welcome to Harwick," I said. "I'm Aaron." Before Owen could move, Holloway swiveled his chair our way. He clocked my hand, clocked the gesture, clocked an opportunity. He leaned slightly toward his lapel mic. "Put on the smile you use when you want the room to laugh with you, and said it clearly enough for every camera in the room. Someone get the truck driver a coffee while the adults finish talking." The reaction was immediate. A board member to his right chuckled too fast, the kind of laugh that's more reflex than humor. An operations executive near the far end made a sound caught between a laugh and a cough. The communications guy in the back turned his face away and looked at the floor. Nate Farwell, I'd find out his name later. He knew exactly how that clip was going to sound on replay. Owen's eyes went from my hand to Holloway, then down to the agenda in front of him. He didn't say anything. Didn't move his hand, didn't say that's out of line. He just found something interesting in his printed deck and stayed there. I didn't drop my hand right away. Kept it out for a second or two. Holloway's smile thinned. His eyes moved to my face, checking, I think, whether I was too slow to understand the hierarchy he'd just announced to everyone in the room and everyone watching the stream. I lowered my hand on my own time, walked to the empty seat at the far end of the table. No nameplate. Good. They'd written my role out of the script entirely. They were about to find out what that cost. "Let's begin," Holloway said, turning to the main screen. The first slide came up. Harwick Industrial Holdings, Leadership Transition and Capital Structure Update. He launched into opening remarks, like a man who'd done this kind of thing 100 times, talked about strategic vision, long-term shareholder value, a new chapter for the company. He used the word partnership 4 times in 3 minutes and didn't once mention the firm that was providing the largest single piece of capital in the deal. I listened, watched the room, watched who laughed at his jokes a half beat too fast, watched who kept their eyes on their notes instead of the screen. Watched Perry Aldrich, the lead independent director, who hadn't laughed at the truck driver line and hadn't looked away from it either. As the second slide came up, transaction overview, I spoke. "Before you go further," I said loud enough to cut through. "There's something the room needs to know." Holloway turned. The look on his face was the look of a man who'd forgotten there was someone at the far end of the table. "We're not taking comments from staff during the session," he said, the amusement still in his voice. "You can leave notes with investor relations afterward." I met his eyes. "If you're not willing to say hello to the person across from you," I said, "then by tomorrow morning, $2.1 billion will no longer be part of this deal." The room didn't gasp. Boardrooms don't gasp. They go quiet in a way that feels physical, like the air pressure changes. Phones stopped moving. Pens stopped. The eyes shifted sideways without anyone wanting to be caught looking. Someone laughed after a beat. Too loud, forced. "All right, A director said. Let's keep this professional. Holloway's smile came back thinner. Save the theatrics, he said. Capital is being handled. I am the capital, I said. He stared at me for a long moment. Then Lance Mercer, the CFO, cleared his throat from the middle of the table. We still need direct confirmation from the capital provider, Lance said carefully. Legal can't substitute for that release. It requires the authorized signatory. Holloway's eyes moved from Lance to me. Slowly, the way you look at something when your brain is still running the numbers on whether what you're seeing is actually what you're seeing. You're saying you control the funds, he said. Not a question. More like a man checking whether he'd misread a contract. I'm the managing partner at Ridgepoint Capital, authorized to release the full commitment, I said. All of it. Perry Aldrich set his pen down. All $2.1 billion. All of it, I said. And without Ridgepoint's tranche, the remaining institutional commitments can't proceed as structured. The syndication collapses. Most of the other partners won't move independently. The silence that followed was a different kind. Not shock, recalibration. The sound of people quietly revising the map of the room they thought they were sitting in. Holloway straightened in his chair, tried to find the rhythm again. Then perhaps we should restart properly, he said, now that roles are clear. Perhaps, I said. The room knew, even if nobody said it out loud. The dynamic that Holloway had walked in with, the one where he was the gravity everything else orbited, wasn't the one anyone was leaving with. He just didn't know yet how fast it was about to move. They pushed forward into the deck like nothing had shifted. That's what people do when they don't yet believe consequences are real. You keep moving. You act like the ground is still solid. You hope the moment passes. It didn't pass. Lance brought up the respect clause about 10 minutes later. He didn't announce it. He just tapped the folder in front of him and said there was one item still to acknowledge before they moved to the capital release section. Holloway didn't look up from the screen. We've covered everything. Months of review. The conduct provision, Lance said. That got everyone's attention. A director flipped pages. Perry Aldrich leaned forward. Which one? Someone asked. Lance read it straight from the document. Reputational conduct, capital withdrawal rights, documented impact threshold, no penalty clause. Clear language, no room for interpretation. Owen Carver looked up from his deck for the first time since the truck driver comment. What does that mean exactly, documented conduct? It means, Perry said, reading further down, it doesn't require intent. Just impact. And documentation. He didn't look at the cameras when he said it. He didn't have to. This was standard boilerplate, Holloway said. His voice had an edge now that hadn't been there before. It was revised, Lance said. Ridgepoint requested specific language changes during the second round of term sheet negotiations. At my insistence, I said. Holloway turned to me. You were worried about optics. I was worried about behavior, I said. He let out a short breath, the kind that's not quite a scoff but wants to be. Nobody's misbehaving. We're having a business meeting. Perry looked up toward the camera mounted in the upper corner of the room. Red light on, still recording. This meeting is being documented, he said. Careful word, not recorded. Documented for transparency, Holloway said, like that settled it. Yes, I said, for transparency. That was the moment he lost the room. Not loudly. Nobody stood up. Nobody pointed a finger. But I watched it happen, the quiet reorientation of every person at that table away from Brent Holloway and toward their own exposure. The lawyers in their heads were already working. When the recess was called 15 minutes later, chairs moved fast. People stepped out in clusters, phones already in hand. I stayed seated for a moment, watched who left together, watched who kept distance from Holloway. Watched Nate Farwell from communications walk out alone and not look back. Then I stood, left the flowers on the floor, and walked into the hall. The corridor was cooler, quieter. Two directors stood near the window talking low, and both of them stopped when I passed. Holloway was already on his phone 10 feet away, not bothering to lower his voice. It's just posturing, he said into the phone. We'll walk him back in. He's not going to blow up a deal this size over a joke. I kept walking. Found a quiet spot near the service elevator. Took out my phone. One number. Reed picked up on the second ring. Activate the withdrawal, I said. Full amount, effective immediately. A pause, short. All of it, all of it. Reason code. Conduct during negotiations. Documentation is live on 3 camera feeds right now. Understood. Executing. The line went quiet. I slipped the phone into my pocket and stood there for a moment. My breathing was the same as when I'd walked in. My hands were steady. That's how I've always known when a decision is right. Not because it feels good, but because it feels settled. Like something that was already true finally got said out loud. I thought about my father for a second. Not the things he said, I've quoted those enough. I thought about his hands. The way they looked at the end of a shift. Scarred, calloused, stained with work that didn't wash off completely. He shook every man's hand the same way. The plant manager, the guy running the wire feed next to him, the kid showing up his first day. Same grip, same eye contact. Same good to meet you. He'd have understood why I was standing in that hallway. I walked back into the boardroom. The red light on the camera was still on. The room was doing its best impression of normal. Chairs back in, water poured. Voices kept light and controlled. Holloway looked up when I took my seat. His eyes said he'd already decided he'd handled it. Let's get back on track, he said. The edge was gone. Smooth again. Man in charge. The deck came back on screen. Projections. Cash flow models. Timelines. All of it built on a number that no longer existed. Though nobody in the room knew that yet except me. Lance's phone buzzed first. He looked at the screen. Something changed in his face. Not fast, not dramatic, just a slow draining. He read it again. Then a second notification landed. Another phone buzzed, then another. A low staggered sequence around the table. Let's silence devices, Holloway said sharply. We're mid-session. Lance didn't move to silence his. He stared at the screen. Then he looked up. The primary tranche, he said. His voice was flat, controlled. The voice of a man delivering bad news to a room that doesn't know it's bad yet. It's been withdrawn. The room didn't react immediately. People looked at their own phones first. Like they needed to verify it from their own feed. Withdrawn how? Holloway said. We're in the middle of closing. Executed. Lance said. Confirmed. Full amount, $2.1 billion. That's not possible. A director said it like saying it would make it less true. The syndication, Perry said slowly, looking at me. Without Ridgepoint's tranche, the remaining commitments can't proceed as structured, I said. Some won't proceed at all. Holloway's head turned toward me. Fully this time. Not the half glance of a man who's already dismissed you. The full look of someone trying to recalculate everything at once. You will reverse this, he said. Quiet now, no smile, no lapel mic performance. Just a man who'd finally understood the weight of what he'd said in this room 40 minutes ago. There's nothing to reverse, I said. It's done. You don't get to decide that, Holloway said. Standing now, both hands on the table, this board decides. We have agreements. We have timelines. You had timelines, Lance said quietly. They just changed. Reverse it. Holloway looked at me like a man who'd spent 30 years having things reversed when he asked. Call your office. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. We can put a statement together. Clarify context. There's no context to clarify, I said. You said what you said. The cameras caught it. The clause is clear. It was a joke. He looked around the table for backup. He's overreacting to a joke. Perry Aldrich spoke first. It was a joke made on a live investor feed, he said. In front of the incoming CEO, about the managing partner of the firm providing our largest capital commitment. He paused. That's not overreacting. That's the clause doing exactly what it was written to do. Another director leaned forward. The footage is already out there. We can't unring that bell. Phones were no longer buzzing with the initial withdrawal alerts. They were ringing now. Assistants, banks, external partners, trading desks. Harwick was a public company. The market was already processing what the early feeds were showing. Someone near the middle of the table covered his mic with his palm and said low, "Per-market indicators are moving." How bad? The man next to him asked. Double digits. Down. Owen Carver had been quiet since Lance's announcement. Now he looked at me directly. First real eye contact since the meeting started. You're comfortable letting this go? He asked. Not accusatory, genuine. This didn't go because I left, I said. It cracked because your chairman decided that humiliating someone on camera was worth more than protecting the company he was supposed to be running. I didn't create that risk. I just priced it. Holloway slammed his palm on the table. This meeting is suspended, no, Perry said. It isn't. We have a governance obligation to address what happened in this room today, on the record. You're not removing me over one moment. This isn't one moment, Perry said. It's a pattern, and now it has a number attached to it. No one reached to turn off the cameras. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they knew it was already too late for that to matter. What followed wasn't loud. Boards don't do loud, they do procedure. They called an extraordinary session. They referenced by law sections, they made motions. Formal language, careful votes, but underneath all of it, every person at that table was doing the same quiet math. How close was their name to Brent Holloway's? And how fast could they put distance between them? Within the hour, Holloway was placed on administrative leave pending internal review. Owen's appointment was put on hold. A committee was formed to assess next steps with capital partners. They tried to pull me into that last part. Perry found me in a smaller conference room down the hall. He came in alone, closed the door, sat down across from me. "There's a path forward," he said. "New governance covenants. Direct oversight seat for Ridgepoint. A joint statement acknowledging the situation and committing to standards going forward." "This isn't about structures," I said. "We can make real changes." "Board composition, reporting requirements, Perry." I said it once, not unkind. "You built a room where your chairman thought that kind of behavior was acceptable under lights and on a live feed. That's not a policy problem. That's a culture problem. I'm not going to fund a culture problem and hope the paperwork fixes it." He was quiet for a moment. "You're walking away from a significant return," he said. "I'm walking away from 18 months of headaches I can already see coming." I said, "I've paid that tuition before." "I know what it costs." He nodded slowly. "Is there anything that would change your position?" "No," I said. He exhaled, stood, extended his hand. I shook it. "For what it's worth," he said. I didn't laugh. "I know," I said. "I noticed the story hit the financial wires by early afternoon. Ridgepoint wasn't named in the first wave. The headlines stayed on Harwick. Private investor withdraws $2 and B commitment amid governance concerns. Incoming CEO appointment, suspended pending board review, chair on administrative leave after internal footage surfaces." By evening, the clip of Holloway's truck driver line had made the rounds on financial Twitter and 2 business news segments. I watched one of them muted in the Cincinnati airport lounge. 2 analysts debating whether investor activism had gone too far. One said it was an overreaction to a throwaway comment. The other said a throwaway comment that triggers a $2.1 billion withdrawal and a double-digit stock drop isn't a sensitivity issue. It's an accountability issue. I turned the screen off and checked my gate. On the flight back to Columbus, Marlene Forsyth from the Financial Post sent a message. "Just one question," she said. "People want to understand why you walked." I typed back. "They already know. They saw the clip." She pushed back. "Is there a lesson you'd want executives to take from this?" I thought about it for a minute. Thought about my father. The handshakes he gave every man the same way, every day, for 30 years. Not because he knew who they were, because he didn't. I typed, "Respect isn't something you show after the deal closes. It's the cost of entry to the conversation. If you can't manage that when the cameras are on, you won't get the chance to prove you can do it when they're off." She asked if she could quote me. "Yes," I said. "Use my name." That night, I called Reed from the parking garage at Columbus Executive. "Done," I said. "Done," he said. That was the whole conversation. We didn't celebrate. We didn't run the numbers on what we'd left on the table. We'd both been in this business long enough to know that the deals you walk away from clean sleep better than the ones you close dirty. I drove home, made coffee, stood at the kitchen window for a while. My father built things with his hands for 30 years and never once asked to be introduced before he said hello. Brent Holloway had a corner office, a country club membership, and a board title, and he couldn't manage a basic greeting without turning it into a performance. I held my hand out to welcome a new CEO. The chairman decided that was beneath him. Turned out it was priced at $2.1 billion.